and succotash! Somebody's been eating my porridge! Come on, wake up!
Fairy tales are the easiest thing to write a cartoon about because your audience already knows them. You've got something to make fun of. Bugs Bunny meets the Hansel and Gretel story. Bang, you've got it. You've got an episode right there. It's the simplest premise in the world.
That's good, yeah. That's good. Und tiefes und bis Bein.
Cartoons are fairy tales. When you see a drawing moving, it's very different than seeing a model moving. So I think the fairy tale is the ideal subject for a cartoon.
Look at Red Riding Hood. You've got an innocent little character and you've got a wolf.
Oh, all right. They know who I am.
There's the paradigm of just about 90% of every cartoon. Big mean character tries to eat little innocent character. So you can put any character in that paradigm.
Warner Brothers used only 5 or 6 stories over and over again. They used the Three Little Pigs, Jack and the Beanstalk, Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, and of course Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Shut up, Junior!
And the reason for that is those stories are public domain. Another good thing is that in those days, everybody was pretty much familiar with those stories. If you've got a complicated plot in an 8-minute short, you're gonna be spending most of your screen time explaining that to your audience. And that cuts out all your time for funny stuff.
Meow. What's up? Doc?
Well, that's number one.
It certainly helped that the leader of the field, Walt Disney, was actually making straight versions of fairy tales. And so that just gave the cartoonists at Warner Brothers more fodder to work with.
Hey, Grandma! That's an awfully big nose for you. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Disney was doing it and taking it seriously, so Warner's was going to take the other end and do them satirically. So, okay, Elmer Fudd is a big giant up in Beanstalk Land.
I smell the blood of an English wabbit.
It was almost sport at Warner Brothers to spoof Disney. And one of the greatest spoofs of all is their spoof of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was called Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs.
And I got the blues in the night.
The chief instigator of the fairy tale spoof at Warner Brothers would be Tex Avery. He just loved giving a modern twist to these classic stories, making them contemporary, finding what was kind of corny about these things and holding that up to the light.
When Tex Avery did A Bear's Tale, it was completely turning the medium upside down and having Little Red Riding Hood being a sharp-talking Brooklynese sort of telephone operator.
Oh, hello, Goldie. Yes? This is Red Riding Hood. Say, kid, I just found a note on my grandma's pillow from that skunk, the wolf.
Tex himself did the voice of the father bear who kept uncontrollably giggling and turning to the audience and saying,
I know there ain't no robber up there, just a little tiny girl named Goldilocks. I read this story last week in Reader's Digest.
Because of Avery's influence, I think that studio was the pick of the place for sending up fairy tales. And then Fritz Freeling, of course, had his musical ability where he'd do Pigs in a Polka. As the years went on, they'd end up with the regular characters that they created, like Tweety and Sylvester, you know, Red Riding Hoodwink.
I thought I saw a booty dad.
Chuck Jones was interesting because when he started directing in his early period, he was really trying to do very realistic Disney-type cartoons, unlike what the rest of the studio was doing. Tom Thumb in Trouble is an example of that. It would only be a few more years that Chuck would see the light and come over to our side and start making really, really funny spoofs like Bugs Bunny and the Three Bears.
Somebody's been sleeping in my bed, and here he is still been sleeping in my bed.
And later on, Beanstalk Bunny.
Odds my bodkins, a beanstalk.
It works both as a wild parody of the story, but it also works as a great Bugs and Daffy cartoon. The best moment is when Bugs and Daffy have both been captured and they're under this glass dome and they're watching Elmer, you know, like prepare to grind their bones, and Daffy is just watching in abject horror, and he's pleading with Bugs and he's begging with Bugs, and then he's screaming at Bugs, and he just looks at him, and Bugs is just sort of sitting there like this, and finally Daffy has nothing to do but also just kind of go there like that and wait till Bugs wants to do something, and then he hands him the glass cutter, and then they're gone.
Jack and the Beanstalk is is endlessly elastic. You can put any character you want in it. I mean, look at how funny Tweety and the Beanstalk is, say. Like, giant Tweety. I smell a itty bitty putty tat. That's very funny.
I thought a itty bitty putty tat.
One of the great things about the Warner's characters is that you can put them anywhere. Their personalities are so well established that you don't need to spend an awful lot of setup time saying how they got where they're going. For Bugs Bunny, you just see that hole burrowing under the ground and he pops up and he's where he has to be.
The regular characterization of the leading Looney Tunes characters fitted perfectly into a fairy tale because it was like upsetting an already established universe. In something like The Three Bears, you do have Bugs Bunny with his established wiseacre, confident, brash character, interrupting the life of these famous fairy tale characters.
We don't know what he's going to do, but we know that story is going to get savaged and beaten up by Bugs. And we look forward to that because we're kind of sick of the Three Bears story. We've heard it all our lives, and we want someone to do something to it.
Putting Bugs Bunny anywhere made a situation funny. Put Bugs Bunny on the North Pole, funny. So put Bugs Bunny in a fairy tale story, you definitely had your cartoon figured out.
He's the perfect hero for a fairy tale or fable because he's sympathetic, but at the same time, he's a total wise-ass, and so he can set it on its ear and make it into a parody. And I don't think that's better represented than in the three cartoons where they deal with the tortoise versus the hare. In this case, Bugs Bunny versus Cecil Turtle. Bugs Bunny is very cocky, but when he goes up against that little guy, there's something about that turtle that just really grates on him. And every time Bugs tries to beat him, he winds up getting beaten himself. That's the point of the fable, because the hare always underestimates the turtle, and he always gets beaten.
Well, how in the what? Gee, how did you get up here anyway?
Freeling did a lot with Sylvester, Red Riding Hood Winked, and Goldie Mouse and the Three Cats, where it was funny to actually see Sylvester doing the Papa Bear role with a wife and his spoiled brat son.
Help! A nasty old cat! Put her on the plate, Pop. Put her on the plate.
It's the kind of thing where if he would put Granny in one of those Sylvester cartoons, he would handle Granny so that she was feisty, you know?
Pow! Right in the kisser!
Every now and again, they would do a musical cartoon that was based on a fairy tale, like Holiday for Shoestrings is based on The Shoemaker and the Elves. And it's basically an excuse for Frizz to have as many different types of musical sight gags as possible about elves constructing shoes. And it's beautiful timing, absolutely gorgeous timing. I think one reason we like seeing our favorite characters transplanted into fairy tales is because we regard them as personalities, as actors that we enjoy seeing. Didn't matter where Bugs Bunny was, you want to watch Bugs Bunny because you like watching him. And I think that's one reason that these films really succeed very well, is you're watching an actor go through his paces in an environment that's fresh.
They are fantasy characters, Bugs Bunny and some of these talking rabbits. I think for that very reason that when you introduce a fantasy subject to a talking rabbit, it's a different situation than if you just show a cartoon character of these extreme characters like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck.
Release me, and I shall grant thee a rich reward.
Animators are still spoofing fairy tales today. I mean, Happily Never After, Hoodwinked, Shrek. We still love seeing these classic stories made fun of. Warner Brothers did it first and best.